Morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome into another episode of Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Today, it's Mental Health Monday. Listeners, you should still talk to your own doctor or therapist for personal guidance. I am not a professional. I am not in the health field. I'm just one that, I suffer from anxiety, depression, and I'm talking to you from my own heart, from my own, what's worked for me. May not work for you, but just giving you my thoughts and feelings on a lot of things. And today we're talking about your mind, your body, and your breath, how everyday habits can shape your mental health. I just want to say, everyone, you can call 988 text. That's the suicide and crisis hotline. It's always open. Someone will always answer. If you're feeling like you can't reach out to that number. If we can just save one person's enough. This is Uncle Jimmy from Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Today, we're getting practical. In episode 1, we talked about the weight you can't see, how stress, trauma, and silence pile up in the mind. But the mind does not float above your life like a cloud. Your mind lives in your body, and that body has a lot to say about how you feel. Today's episode is called Your Mind, Your Body, Your Breath. Because sometimes the first step to taking care of your mental health, it's not a deep conversation. It's going to bed on time, drinking water, and learning how to breathe on purpose. Some simple things. We talk about our thoughts like there's something floating around in the air. Oftentimes we say, I'm in my head. I'm lost in my thoughts. But your brain is not a Wi-Fi signal. It's an organ, like your heart, your liver, your kidneys. It runs on oxygen, blood flow, nutrients, hormones, electricity. When your body is exhausted, dehydrated, underfed, or overloaded with sugar and stress, your brain is trying to think and feel while running on fumes. Some of what we call I'm just broken is actually my body has been running on empty for a long time. This doesn't mean you can fix everything with smoothies and push-ups, but it does mean your daily habits are either helping your mind or making its job harder. Let's start with sleep. Sleep is the time when your brain cleans out waste. Memories get sorted and stored. Your nervous system finally gets to power down a little. But when you don't sleep enough, or your sleep is trash because you're up all night scrolling on the phone, or you're either eating heavy right before bed, or something that we all do, stressing about tomorrow, your brain doesn't get to finish its shift. Then you wake up foggy, irritable, anxious for no clear reason, craving junk food and caffeine just to function. It feels like I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. But really, you woke up from not enough bed. If you want one simple, powerful mental health move, it's this. Pick a bedtime you can keep most nights. Shut screens down 30 to 60 minutes before. Make your bedroom as dark and quiet as you reasonably can. You're not being lazy for prioritizing sleep. You're giving your brain the tools it needs to show up for you tomorrow. It's something we don't like to talk about. But what you eat doesn't just hit your waistline. It hits your mood. Big swings in sugar and caffeine can mean bursts of energy and confidence, followed by crashes of anxiety, irritability, and brain fog, going all day on caffeine and vibes, and then smashing a heavy meal late at night. That leaves your body confused and your brain on edge. You don't have to become a nutrition saint. You can start small, but don't skip breakfast. Give yourself some protein and real food in the morning. Add one piece of fruit or a vegetable to your usual meals. Notice how you feel 30 to 60 minutes after eating, more calm or more wired. Over time, you'll start to see a pattern. Some meals help your mind. Others pour gasoline on your stress. Use that information. Feed the life you want, not just the craving of the moment. Let's talk about moving your body. When people hear exercise, they think gym selfies and six packs. Forget that. Think a 10-minute walk around the block, dancing in your living room to your favorite song, stretching when you get out of bed. Movement does 3 big things. It burns off some of the stress hormones built up in your system. 2, it tells your brain we're not trapped. We can move, we can act. 3, it releases feel-good chemicals that can lift your mood naturally. You don't have to become a marathon runner like Coach. Just move more than you did yesterday. If you're in a dark place, even standing up and walking to the kitchen can feel like climbing a mountain. That counts. Respect that. Tomorrow, maybe you walk to the end of the driveway. Next week, maybe you walk around the block. You're not training for the Olympics. You're training for another day of being here on Earth. Here's something nobody taught most of us. Your breath is one of the only things that can change both your body and your mind in under a minute. When you're anxious, scared, or angry, your breathing often gets faster, shallower, higher in the chest. That tells your brain we're in danger, which makes your heart race and your thoughts speed up even more. When you slow your breathing down on purpose, deeper, into the belly, you send the opposite signal. You are safe enough to relax a little. I want you all to inhale through your nose for a count of 4. Hold that for 4 seconds. Exhale gently through your mouth for a count of 6. Do that 5 times. Notice how after that small little exercise, your shoulders will drop a little, how your jaw loosens, how your thoughts feel a tiny bit less loud. This is your nervous system responding in real time. Breath work isn't magic, but it's a free, always with you tool for turning the volume down on panic, turning the light up on peace. You know, we all live with a TV in our pocket. News alerts, social feeds, arguments, disasters, all day, every day. Your brain is not built to take on the whole world's problems before breakfast. Constant exposure to constant outrage videos, arguments in the comments. It keeps your nervous system in fight or flight mode. Ask yourself, do I really need to check the news 15 times a day? Does this feed leave me informed or just angry and exhausted? Do I feel better or worse after scrolling? You have the right to mute people, limit apps. Choose a time each day when you're off duty from the world. Protecting your attention is part of protecting your mental health. You don't have to carry every crisis on your back to prove that you care. Now let's talk about building routines that hold you. When your mind feels chaotic, you need routines that hold you up when your feelings can't. Think of a simple morning routine. Wake up, drink water, stretch or move for 5 to 10 minutes. Take 3 to 5 slow breaths before you even touch your phone. And a simple evening routine. Put your phone away 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Do one calming thing. Read, shower, stretch, pray, journal. Remind yourself of one thing you handled today, even if it was just I made it through. Routines are like guardrails on a bridge. They don't stop the storm, but they keep you from driving off the edge when the wind picks up. This is one of the biggest ones I need you to pay attention to. I need everyone to be gentle with yourself. Here's where a lot of people mess up. They hear this and think, okay, I'm going to fix my life in 1 week. Perfect diet, perfect sleep, perfect workout, perfect everything. Then life happens. You miss a day. You slip. You get overwhelmed. And the inner critic shows up as it always does. See, you can't stick to anything. Why bother? Everybody, listen. If you fall off one day, that doesn't erase the work you already did. You don't need perfection. You need consistency with compassion. Talk to yourself the way you'd talk to someone you love who's trying to change their life. Okay, we missed today. That's all right. Tomorrow, we try again. Next, when habits aren't enough. Sometimes even when you sleep better, eat better, move more, breathe deeper, you still feel stuck in the dark. That doesn't mean the habits are useless, but it might mean you need more support. Maybe you need therapy, medication, support groups, maybe a medical evaluation to rule out things like thyroid issues, chronic illness, or other conditions that affect your mood. Taking care of your body is a foundation, not a substitute for professional help when you need it. There is no shame in saying I've done what I can on my own. Now I need backup. So I just want you to know one body, one mind, one life. Family, this was episode 2, your mind, your body, your breath. We talked about how your brain is part of your body, how sleep, food, movement, and screens affect your mood, how your breath can calm your nervous system, and how small routines can hold you when life feels too big. You only get one body in this lifetime. You only get one mind. Treat them like something precious, not like something you can just run into the ground and replace. On episode 3, which will be next Monday, the stories in your head, we're going to go inside the mental conversation, the voice that says you're not enough, the loops of worry, the old narratives from childhood, and how to start talking back. Until then, pick one habit from today. Go to bed a little earlier, walk a little, breathe a little deeper, log off a little sooner. Your mind will thank you. Your body will thank you. And your future self will look back and say, that's when I started taking myself seriously. Guys, this is Uncle Jimmy. Take care of your body. Take care of your mind. And remember, you deserve to feel better than just barely making it. Peace and love, peace and love. Up next, we got Tina Djuretic. You guys are going to love her. We had a great conversation. Peace and love, peace and love. Uncle Jimmy out.
Every one of us carries a story we don't always talk about. The quiet battles, the heavy days, the moments that cracked us open, and the moments that stitched us back together. We've all stumbled. We've all broken. We've all stood at the edge of something we weren't sure we could come back from. And somehow, through strength we didn't know we had, we rose anyway. Because inside every person, there is a spark that refuses to die. a hope that refuses to stay silent, a heart that refuses to give up no matter how dark the night gets. And that's why we're here, to listen, to learn, to witness the courage it takes just to be human. Every soul you hear on the show has walked through something that shaped them, sharpened them, and carried them forward. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a battle. Everyone has a journey. And this is where you come to hear it.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome into Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with someone whose story is a powerful testament to resilience, self-discovery, and the quiet strength it takes to rewrite your life. Tina Djuretic. She's a Canadian author from Vancouver, one of my favorite places to visit, a summer tour guide sharing the beauty of her incredible country, and a winter wordsmith pouring her heart onto the page. After years entangled in narcissistic abuse from partners, Tina finally named the pattern she'd been living, and her last relationship became the key that unlocked a flood of forgotten childhood memories, mental, physical, and emotional abuse that left deep scars, both visible and invisible. What could have broken her instead became the catalyst for profound healing. During 2 isolating years amid COVID, she turned inward, writing, reflecting, forgiving, not just others, but herself, and broke the chains of generational trauma. Now living a life brimming with genuine joy and strong, healthy boundaries, Tina has channeled that journey into 2 transformative books. Her raw, funny, and deeply moving memoir, Finding My Sovereignty, Memoirs of an Empath, and her practical workbook, Lost in the Overwhelm, Embrace Your Triggers and Reclaim Your Power. Both are available on Amazon and at sovereignandsage.com. She is here to speak openly, unfiltered, and from the heart about trauma, healing, forgiveness, self-love, and emerging stronger on the other side. Tina, thank you for trusting us with your story. We're honored, moved, and ready to listen.
Thank you for having me and for inviting me.
I'm so excited, and I appreciate you moving things around for me so we can get your story out to the listeners. And, I often tell people myself, people ask me why a podcast and why bring people on. I spent almost, 16 years still dealing with my, mental health off and on therapists. And I often find this to be quite rewarding, more rewarding than sitting in my therapist's office, listening to him talk and, hearing other people's stories and their journey and letting people know sometimes it's okay not to be okay, but, to seek the help. And one of the biggest things I found with you was you had to forgive yourself first, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of my hardest things that I just started. I went through a breakup in September, and I thought the world was over and everything was coming crashing down. And, I finally took stock in my life and looked myself in the mirror, and I said, hey, I got to do the work. I got to put the work in. I forgave myself, forgave others. And now my life is, turning corners. And sometimes I still hit the speed bumps, and, life goes back and forth and up and down, but I'm here, I'm breathing, and we have you on. So take us to that pivotal moment when your last partner unlocked those forgotten childhood memories. What was it like when those pieces suddenly started fitting together?
Well, much like you just going through a breakup, right? Breakups usually shine a light on what we need to change or what we need to run away from. Right? Sometimes our other partners, but for me, my relationships were trying to show me what my trauma was. But of course, we don't always know how to listen. And as we get older, then we start to see the pattern. And so that's what was happening for me. He was my 3rd major partner. I was able to see a pattern because there was 3. And even though I had psychoanalyzed the other relationships, I still didn't see the through line, right? Because they were so different from each other. But then the through line was narcissism, as it often is. So when it all came to a head and we broke up, the realization for me, well, first of all, is that I was dating my mother. I mean, it just smashed me in the face when the realization finally came, right? I mean, I'm sure it was in the back of my mind, tickling, but I didn't have a finger on it until I sat down and I made a list. I mean, we got to that point in our relationship where I just went, is this worth it? Like, I don't want to go away because I loved him so much, but at the same time, I was seeing some patterns I didn't like. So I sat down and I made a list. I didn't even get to the good qualities. I went straight to the bad qualities. And once I made the list and looked at it, that's when I went, oh my God, I couldn't hide. I couldn't disguise it. I couldn't make excuses for bad behavior anymore. My mother was staring me in the face.
Right in the face, yeah.
Oh, right in the face, right? Which we know that. We know we date our childhood trauma until we heal it, right?
Yeah.
But we were
oftentimes, right, Tina, we oftentimes in love, right? You push, you push aside the negative traits, right? You push aside those things because you're in love, right?
And
You're
you
supposed
want
to
it to
love
work.
them, you want it to work, and you love them for who they are, and they may say some bad things, and they may, things that they don't mean, but then when you, like you said, you sat down, you started making a list, right? And were you by yourself when you made the list?
Well, yeah, you bet.
When you're sitting there and you're thinking about it and you're writing it down, and I'm always pen to paper, always mind to pen to paper. And when you put it in front of you, like you said, you realize it and you say, Jesus, I've been pushing this aside. I just thought that was, something that would pass, and it didn't.
Mhm.
So what was it like when you finally realized, like you said, you were dating your mom, you know?
Well, I understood this wasn't a phase. This wasn't, I'm still bitter against my ex-wife and still angry because we share a child and there's just going to continuously be problems. It went beyond all of that for me to understand that there was mental illness there. My mother's bipolar, so just to put that out there, and quite severely bipolar. And I wouldn't necessarily class this person I was dating as severely bipolar. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I had enough of that to know, like, once I saw it, once I wrote it down and went constantly criticizing me, this, that, 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 I was like, oh my God, there's no getting around this. I see this for what it is. The deception was also that my partner was a firefighter. So the excuse was always PTSD. And I did a deep study on all the things that can manifest with PTSD. And so a lot of the traits that it's not that I didn't see them, it's
Yeah.
that I threw them under the PTSD umbrella.
Yeah.
So it stayed hidden from me even longer until the really, really deep criticism didn't stop. That is when I went, oh my God, this is so familiar, right? And then that was my mother. She was
Yeah.
incredibly critical. So
Where have I seen this before?
where have I felt it before too, right?
Exactly.
'Cause really it boils down to like, I feel it in my bones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once I had the realization, there was no lying to myself. First of all, I was old enough in life, I was in my late 40s, that I knew I would not stay. I would never tolerate being bullied again, ever. So then it was just, how do I gracefully extricate myself from this situation? Because you know that once you tell the narcissist you're leaving, it only gets uglier, right? It gets ugly. And it did.
Well, it gets uglier, or they love bomb you, or they tell you, I'm going to change, or they flip it on you and it's your fault. You did all this wrong. You did everything wrong. You did X, Y, and Z wrong. And if you didn't do this, then we'd be okay. And oftentimes you begin to sometimes, doubt yourself,
For sure.
where they twist it around on you and you think to yourself, I'm going crazy, but then when you sit there, you get the silence, you're by yourself, and it's only you in a room, and you go through it. And you, like you said, you write it down and you see it. So your childhood involved mental, physical, and emotional abuse.
Yeah.
How did those early experiences shape the choices you made in adult relationships?
They controlled without me knowing it, without me understanding it, they controlled every decision I made because it's almost like, well, trauma does split you, right? It splits your personality, right? Into the inner child that is broken, the things that you're repeating, and then the adult you that is trying to grow beyond that can't, because
Yeah.
you're trapped in this pull, right? This push-pull situation. So, I was someone who always went inwards. I did not go from partner to partner. That was never my thing. After every big blow up in life, I'd go years analyzing.
Yeah.
So I was trying to create boundaries along the way, and I was. But what I didn't understand is that no matter how much I attacked it mentally, emotionally, and I'm just going to take you a little bit spiritual here, my chakras were aligned to trauma.
Yeah.
So I could think away all I wanted, and yet I kept attracting the same kind of not just partners, friends, boss. This is going to surround you in every part of life, right? So broken people raise broken people. And we don't get what we want in life. We get what we are. If
Exactly.
we're traumatized, we're only going to invite souls into our life that are going to re-traumatize us.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, for some of the times, I'd always hear the, hurt people, hurt people, hurt people,
Absolutely.
and it's true. It's true. But, oftentimes when you're in love, I'll say it a million times. You always think that tomorrow is going to be a better day. It's going to be different. It's going to be different. But when you're in that constant circle, right? And you're reliving it every day to the point of, I use the definition of, insanity of banging your head off the wall 100 times thinking,
It's gonna
100
change.
different times it's going to change, but it's not, but I think, like you said, you often attract that, right? Until you can finally heal yourself, right? Of your trauma, whether it's from, being a child or something you went through in life. But the healing isn't something that happens overnight. People need to realize that. It's not 24 hours and you're healed,
That's for sure. In
you know?
fact, here's a little secret. We never stop healing our entire lives.
We
So
never
stop
stop healing.
rushing for the end point.
Exactly.
We never stop healing. Our souls are here to heal, to learn, to
Yeah.
experience. We never stop.
So, you said you were attracting those people. When did you finally say, enough is enough? I'm going to start attracting, different friends, different partners. When did that happen in life?
I'm not sure that it was more of a conscious, like, I want to attract different partners, for sure. It was more like, I never want to attract this kind of partner again. I don't
Yeah.
even know if I knew how to attract a different kind of partner because I
Because
was
you were
lost.
so used to it.
Yeah, and I also didn't know why, like that, and that's what made me actually go seek help was to go to a channeler and say, "What's wrong with me? Like, I'm smart, I'm logical, I've put down boundaries, and yet every time I meet someone new and I think they're so amazing and so beautiful, they turn into this monster." Change came when I stopped saying, "What's wrong with all the men out there?" And I
Yeah.
said, "What is wrong with
Yeah.
me?" That I will only not what's wrong with me, but that I will only attract this kind of a partner.
Yeah.
Wrong with me? And that's when the answers came. So I went to see a channeler because I've always been quite a spiritual person. And I mean, I dove in head first, that's for sure. There was no more one foot in, one foot out, figured things out. But that's how I healed as well, is because she really explained to me, how the chakras are working, where we store our trauma, that trauma is darkness, if you will, and that when we remove those pieces of darkness, we bring more light into our life. Well, that means that I'm then going to automatically meet someone who matches my energy. So the people we are attracted to, we're attracted to them because they match our energy. So if you're full of broken trauma, pain, stuff you can't get rid of, well, that's what you're going to attract. So
Yeah.
I started to heal and really get rid of the trauma. And I don't mean bury it because it was already buried. That was the problem. One of the things here for me is that I didn't remember childhood.
Okay.
That's a big key factor. I
Yeah.
had no memory of childhood. So I was repeating trauma that I didn't even understand was there. And
Yeah.
that's where trauma can be so tricky. I mean, I knew I came from a lousy situation. I knew there was abuse. I had a couple memories, right? It wasn't fully gone. But I think the deepest, darkest, most painful things were gone. And I know that because they've only popped up this year. Right? Like, what? New memories. And you're like, whoa. And this is what I mean by we never even stop healing, right? Because I had to go right back to childhood and start working on it again from
Yeah.
scratch.
From scratch.
No,
Yeah.
I'm so far. I didn't have to go back to scratch. I already had such a strong healing foundation, but I did have to go to those specific memories, walk through them, forgive, let
Yep.
them go.
And that's, one of the toughest things is when you're going through, unresolved trauma and then it finally hits you. One of my toughest things is, and that was a question I'm going to ask you is, when did you start setting healthy boundaries?
Well, I didn't start with those, that's for dang sure, right? I certainly started with, oh man, I'd say, okay, maybe my situation was a little bit special in the way that I started healing as I wrote my memoir. So I was already journaling like crazy, journaling in the form of a book. But I didn't just write. I stopped, I healed, I wrote, I stopped, I wrote. In fact, it was such a stop and start because my soul wouldn't let me go forward. It was like, oh, no, 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 no. Don't
Yeah.
just write that little thing and then think you're going to write the next one. No, you're going to heal. But I started doing that right a couple months before COVID hit.
Yeah.
So I was truly isolated, which meant not only was I healing, but it also meant that I wasn't going out into the world to see if it was taking, if it was working, if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
was by myself. So I don't know if it's this way for everybody, but because I was isolated, the boundaries came about 2 years in because that's when I went back out into the world.
Yeah. And that's like, for me, one of the hottest things is boundaries. I've never had boundaries. I've always been a people pleaser. I've always, taken care of everybody else. And no didn't exist in my vocabulary. So one of the first things I ever did for my healthy boundary was saying no,
Yeah.
and when I did say it, I felt like $1,000,000. I felt, hey, you know what? I can say it.
Yeah, I can do this.
I can do this, and so that brings me to the next question, right? During those 2 years of isolation and COVID, you wrote your way through healing. What did that daily practice look like, and how did it help you process the pain?
I started to add things to my life that I didn't have before. Meditation. I needed to talk to my soul, to my spirit, to my inner child somehow. I really turned myself personally. I went to YouTube, which I'd never been on YouTube before. So once or twice, but really I didn't know it.
Yeah.
But because I was by myself, I couldn't even afford to go back to the channeler that sent me on this mission anyways. I was like, I need help, and I don't know how to heal this aside from the obvious writing that I was doing. I was writing a book, and I go to YouTube and I open it up and I'm just like, I need help, right? Like, just my guides, if you're there, help. And the first thing that popped up on YouTube was like inner child healing, and I was like, and I listened to it and it was spot on. I mean,
everything you needed to hear.
My God. Well, and then I just did a deep dive into that particular teacher because she had so many things on that helped. So I probably added meditation first. And that took me a long, long time to learn how to meditate, right? The more broken you are, probably you understand you have a monkey mind, right? Insomnia was a way of life for me. So to still it for any amount of time was crazy. And then I really understood, again, through these teachers, to move the energy out of your body because we trap so much trauma in our bodies. So I added yoga, right? All these things are on YouTube, right? Or on any kind of whatever internet, any platform that you like. It's just, that's what I knew to go to. But I started doing yoga and there were free teachers. So there was that. And then there was a long walks in the forest. You and I talked about that. I'm from Vancouver. I live close to Stanley Park. I'm close to the ocean, which I love. And I'm close to the forest. So nature has always been a savior for me. Always. I've always known that very young and just instinctively. But I really started to understand the power of forest bathing and grounding, and I started to just walk through the forest, and it really cleared my head. So there's were a couple of practices that I added almost immediately. They took time, but I added them.
When you were walking through the forest, did you shoes or no shoes?
Shoes, generally. I've actually just started this week the no shoes thing.
No shoes.
January when we're filming this, so I stuck my feet in the water the other day and went, "What fresh hell is this?" It was so freezing. It only lasted about 30 seconds, but, then I stuck them in the sand and did that instead.
I read a book, and I forget the name of it, but it was a percentage of people, right, that lived by the water, and people that lived, that visited the water every day, how much happier in life that they are, that the water, whether it's the energy that comes from the water, whether it's the vibrations or the frequencies that the water gives off, people were happier by going to the water. And that's one of the biggest things for me that I've done. I'm here in Boston. We live on the water. And, I used to literally get up I have to be in work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I tell people this all the time. I used to get up at 7:30 in the morning, roll out of bed, throw on my clothes, rush to work, right? I'd be there by 8 o'clock, plenty of time. But now what I do is I get up about 6:30, I shower, I grab a coffee, and I sit and I watch, now, at least 2 or 3 times a week, I watch the sunrise. And it's one of the most beautiful feelings in the world. And people are like, why do you get up so early and do that? And it's just like my peace of mind, my peace for myself, that every time I get to see that, it's one of those where it's like, all right, today's going to be a great day, So it's one of those small little things that you change in life that, bring you a lot of joy and happiness, whether you want to think it or not. And I'm just telling you that, my listeners, because I do it. And I went from someone that rushed to work every day now to taking my time and being there early and checking, having my coffee and watching the sunrise. And I can tell you my days are much better just by watching that sunrise. So,
Well, it's grounding you immediately first thing in the morning, right?
Yeah. First thing in the morning right away.
Very important.
So, Tina, forgiveness is a huge theme in your story, right? Forgiving your abusers, but also forgiving yourself. What was the hardest part of that process, and what brought the biggest release? for you?
I'm going to go back to my spiritual beliefs for this because it's part of forgiving yourself. I think that just on a very basic level, we all have to forgive ourselves for the decisions we've made. For a lot of my forgiveness came from not from falling in love with these partners, because that's just, we do that, right? But for not leaving. That's where my forgiveness was, for staying for so long, especially with the middle one.
Yeah.
The middle one was the most difficult one. He was a drug addict. So, and I stayed 7 years. That was my longest relationship. So I had to forgive myself for that.
Yeah.
But on a spiritual level, I had to forgive myself, meaning Earth is a school and we come here to learn. Our souls come here to learn and we choose the lessons we want to learn. And then, of course, there's things that are karmic that we have to learn because we've had so many lifetimes here. But we also choose the family we're going to be born into, the body we're going to have, the parents that we're going to have. And then you have this incredibly horrific childhood experience and go, I chose this. Doesn't mean I chose everything that would happen in that childhood, because there's so many people involved. All those souls have free will as well, right? To do things. But on a very basic level, it's like, I chose this.
Yeah.
And then I can forgive myself. It also helps me to forgive the other people, because often the people, especially in romantic partnerships, the people who hurt us the most are our soul family. And before we incarnated, we asked that person to be the one that was going to hurt us because we trusted them.
Yeah.
And I have this huge lesson to learn, and I need you to do it for me. So how can we then turn around and not forgive that soul for doing exactly what they were supposed to do? And
Yeah.
we're going to do it to them probably in the next lifetime. Nobody's free of this. Everything that's been done to you, you've done it to others. That's
Others.
karma,
Yeah.
right? So that helped me forgive, understanding that.
So your memoir, Finding My Sovereignty, Memoirs of an Empath, is described as funny and heartfelt amid heavy topics. How did you find humor in the darkness, and why was it important to include that?
I'm just naturally a very funny person. I know I don't get to come on these podcasts and be very funny just because of the nature of it, but I'm a pretty funny person. I'm an incredibly sarcastic person. And I would say that my humor has changed because anyone who's been through childhood trauma or certain jobs, doctors, nurses, firefighters, we have what they call a gallows humor, right? It's a very dark humor. We're able to laugh at things that really shouldn't be funny.
Yeah.
I would say until I went through my healing, that's also a coping mechanism. When something makes you uncomfortable, you make a joke about it. Not that I was someone who constantly made jokes. I was okay with uncomfortable sometimes. But for example, when my father was dying of cancer, my sisters and I were so traumatized in that hospital that we used bad humor to get through it. And everyone
Yeah.
else in the hospital was horrified, but it's how we survived. And it's all we knew. And we're all very funny, but it was dark.
Yeah.
Now, when I watch people make a joke about pain, I see it for what it is. It's
Yeah.
them masking their trauma. I don't do that anymore. I still have a really good sense of humor, but I'm careful about joking about trauma because, first of all, I've healed it. And second of all, I know that it's a mask.
Yeah.
Protection.
Yeah, it's a mask of, like you said, protection that everybody has. And, until the day you're ready to take that off and confront it head on, you're always going to have that. The mask is always going to stay on. So what does being an empath mean to you? And how did that sensitivity play into both your pain and your healing?
So highly sensitive people, or empath, this is the same idea. We are the feelers of the world, right? We feel. It can take us a really long time to understand. I was in my 40s before I even heard the word empath, right? Again, so it took me forever to understand it. But where this played good and bad in my life is that the good is, once you understand how to control it, it is a gift, because everything I do is through feeling, because I'm the feeler. I feel, right? So I can feel when someone else is uncomfortable and I can help them. I can feel when someone's in pain and I can assist. I can feel when I walk into a room and it's very dark and I'm like, get me out of here. I don't belong here. This is dark. Where it hinders you is when you don't, especially as a child, when I didn't have control. Because my mother was bipolar, she would also go through phases where she'd go to her room, lock herself in there, and she'd cry for days, weeks. Yeah. And I was the only one who would dare to then go in there to comfort her, to hug her, because I could feel her pain. It made me very sympathetic, But it was also then shocking when she turned around, flipped the switch and became evil person again. And I'd go, what the hell? I thought we were getting somewhere. So it was really confusing as a child. I also didn't know how to turn it off. That could be where the humor comes in too as well. I was a middle child and there was so much trauma in our home that I was always the one putting on plays, making jokes, impersonating people, making them laugh. The only one in the home that ever created laughter. There was no laughter in my home. So
especially as the middle child, you know? So you're right there in the winter, guiding tools in summer. How do these two worlds complement each other in your healing and creative life?
Well, in the summertime, I tour guide and I get to go to some of the most beautiful country in the world. And I have traveled the world, so I can honestly say that and mean it. Traveling throughout the Rocky Mountains, throughout British Columbia, it is so beautiful. So it feeds my soul, showing it to other people and bringing joy to their lives as I watch it feed their soul.
As well, yeah.
Makes me so happy. And when I'm touring, I am always talking about the earth and how to respect it. So that's my message. And I feel it. Some people, it's going to go right over their heads. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to know it. They don't, I don't preach at people. But other people, I see them listening and acknowledging and understanding. And then sometimes even at the end of the tour, they'll write me a beautiful note to say, you have forever changed the way I look at the world. I will always have more respect. And it's like, oh, wow, if I only get one of those in a season, that's still at least, just, I don't know, spreading the word, right? Of just,
exactly.
yeah.
Beautiful, it touches the soul.
Absolutely. So that one already feeds me and then it gives me the freedom to have the winter off and to go within and to follow the natural cycles of life because that's what we do in the winter anyways, right? It's a time for going inwards. And then I can continue to work on my own healing and whatever my next project will be and to come and do these podcasts because I don't have time to do that in the summertime. In the summer, I have not time for nothing. I mean, it's 24/7. So.
I can only imagine. I'm going to have to get up there so we can do a whale watch until you can tell me where to go and show me where to be.
You'll love it.
So your workbook, Lost in the Overwhelm, offers practical tools and journaling prompts for healing childhood trauma. Obviously, you've talked about what inspired you to create that, but what are some actionable, things that people can do that are suffering from childhood trauma?
So when I wrote the book, what was really good about this is that the lady, the channeler that I went to that said, we want you to write this memoir and it's going to help people and you're going to heal too. Thankfully, she also said, and you're going to follow it up with a workbook. Thank God she said that because the whole 4 years that I was healing, I was taking notes. Can you imagine if I had to turn around and go, oh God, what did I do 4 years ago when what was the first thing I did when it was raw and painful? Because how I heal now is different to how I started back then, right? So truly everything in the book is taken from my own experience. And I know it works because I had to do it, right?
You had to do it. You had to put the work in.
Yeah. So some actionable things. I worked on the lower 3 root chakras because as I said to you, the energy centers in our body, they hold our trauma. Our body holds our trauma, but we line up our chakras with the people that we meet and they match our chakras. So we need to heal them, bring them functioning, bringing them online. And childhood is in your root chakra. So of course we're going to start there. Some actionable things I cannot stress. I know it's so simplistic, but I really can't stress enough how powerful journaling is. And I don't know that typing on a computer is a bad thing, but there is something scientific that your brain does when you connect, like you said, thought to pen or pencil, whatever, to paper. And for people who don't write, but they drawing is exactly the same. What are you feeling, right? When children are traumatized, we don't ask them to write a diary. We ask them to draw a picture. There's a reason for that, right?
Yeah.
The children, they can do that. So journaling is really important. And your first journal prompt for me starts with that root chakra. So it's acknowledging we bury trauma because we can't handle it. And it's our soul's way of protecting us. But we were always meant to go back to those memories to heal them. And when we don't, that's when it plays havoc in our lives, right? So for me, especially with the amount that I buried, the first thing to do was to go back and actually acknowledge that, those things happened. Yeah. So once I understood what the root chakra was about, it's the place where we feel safe, where we feel secure, where we have our parents in whatever form that is, because we're little, right, to take care of us. And our tribe is there watching us. And I'm safe and I'm secure and I'm loved and I'm grounded. So your first question is, did you get those things as a child? Right? That's like, it's not written that blunt, but my first journaling prompt is that. Did you feel safe? Were you loved? Did you feel loved? Like, acknowledge what life was like and don't rush through these things, right? Again, healing is our whole lives. So it doesn't have to be painful for years. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is, here I am 4 years later, and a couple weeks ago, some new memories surfaced, memories that I didn't have the capacity to deal with 4 years ago. And so now some deeper things, traumas are coming that I'm going, holy cow, right? Like, let's go back now and walk through this again. But it's going so much faster because I've already laid so much foundation for my house. So journaling is one very actionable thing. For me, it's a 3-step process right at the beginning. First, we need to acknowledge everything that happened, acknowledge that to the inner child, remove those programs, put new programs in.
No, I think that's one of the biggest things too for me is just journaling. Like I said, from mind to pen to paper. And it's sort of like that connection of, coming straight through it. I've tried the, typing on the computer, and it just doesn't have the same feeling, the same feeling of getting it out, letting it out,
There's something magic happens there when you do that. Yeah.
When we do it that way, And so for someone still stuck in the cycle of toxic relationships or unhealed childhood wounds, what's the first small step you'd encourage them to take?
Ask yourself when you've had enough. Have you had enough? Right? Like, I know it sounds basic, right? But have you had enough? When we are allowing our triggers to control our lives and our partners are constantly triggering us, because that's what partners are for, right? They are there to shine a light on what's broken in you so that you can heal it, right? So if your partner is shining a light on you, then use that light. Find out what it is and ask yourself, at which point am I going to stop reacting to my triggers and start laying down what my life looks like? When do I stop reacting and start being in control? So for me, it was a matter of going, I don't want to walk on eggshells anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait for the other shoe to drop because I've spent my whole life nervous energy, even when life was awesome, because I was a roller coaster. Let me tell you, my relationship sucked, but my life went through amazing phases. I worked on cruise ships. I got to see the world. I am incredibly well traveled. I got to do some really cool things. But these relationships, good God, were always bringing me down. So this is why I just couldn't understand these roller coasters. But even when life was phenomenal, I was waiting for it to drop because that always did, right? It always did. And I know that we stay in these relationships because it was something you said earlier. We get caught in the loop that at one time, in order for us to even be in that relationship in the first place, it must have started off pretty good. Even if it was a lie, even if it was love bombing, and some of mine were, even if it was a lie, it still felt good.
Good, yeah.
And we stay in the relationship because we're constantly hoping it will go back to that place. So my message to you is, if you've left that place was never there in the first place. It was a lie.
Exactly.
So now what are you waiting for? Are you waiting to get better still? Because it will not. It will not. So,
you've spoken about learning to love yourself despite the voices in your head. What techniques or mindset shifts help quiet those inner critics?
So once I did the journaling and I went through the whole, here's all the things that happened to me in childhood, and went through that part, that was the next step, really, is to then acknowledge my inner child. So I literally pretended she was sitting in front of me. I spoke to her and apologized for all the terrible things that happened to her, to let her know that they're never going to happen again, that I'm here now and I'm the adult and I'm in charge of my life. So you get to go play, right? Because our child usually only comes out when we're fighting, right? When we fight with someone, that's when the inner child comes out, right? So we don't want that anymore. We want the adult self to be present even when we're arguing with someone. And so, you need to heal her so that her or him, whatever your inner child is, right? So that you can then let them go play. And then the reprogramming begins. So acknowledge it, heal it, work with it, and then start to reprogram. So for me, I always had my mother's voice in my head because, of course, as I said, she was that critic, right? She never had a kind word, not ever. I don't ever remember a kind word. I had serious body image issues every single day of my life. She told me I was fat, that I was ugly, I would never be desirable, I would never succeed. So of course that was my inner voice. My outer voice wasn't that, not even
Yeah.
close. I was the most loud, not obnoxious, but like I was a theater girl, right? So I was just very out there. But on the inside, no, 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 no. I doubted every single time I got on that stage. I was petrified of not when, how I was going to fail, right? So
Always waiting for that other, foot to drop. Always
eh,
waiting.
waiting for the disaster because that's what life has shown me, right? So I took lipstick. 'Cause I don't wear lipstick anymore. So I had these lipsticks for my cruise ship days when I worked on cruise ships, and I wrote on my mirror positive affirmations. And even if I didn't believe them, all the more reason to write them like that.
Yeah.
And I said them over and over for 30 days every time I looked in the mirror, because there's also some power in a mirror. Every time you look in a mirror, if all you do is criticize yourself, you imbue magic into that mirror. So I wanted to imbue positive thoughts into that mirror. I put sticky notes all over my apartment to remind myself. And then for 30 days, I listened to positive affirmations. Even though I didn't sleep all that great, it was worth it. And
Yeah.
eventually I started to sleep through them. So I had a 3 sort of prong attack to reprogram how I saw myself.
Yeah. And that's that's a big thing,
Mm.
of being, you can do the first 2 steps, but if you don't reprogram, you're going to go back,
Yeah, you fall on what you
to
know.
those first 2 steps. Cause, I've been there, been through it. And, I'm still a work in progress, still often, those voices in my head, self-doubt, and one of the biggest things I do now in the morning is first thing I say when I get up is all bad intentions and all negative energy out, all good things come in, and I start my day, and I just let it out. I let all the bad stuff out that's inside, if there is any, and I say it's gonna be positive. It's gonna be a positive day, and it really has changed, my days and how they've been going. So, how has sharing your unfiltered truth publicly through books, your site, sovereignandsage.com, or interviews affected your ongoing healing?
I think that when we tell our story, we also learn about ourselves, right? Because, they always say we learn the most when we teach, right? You learn something the best when you start to teach it. So by sharing with people and hearing their stories, and I know how alone I felt when I was in it. I felt so alone. Like nobody could possibly be going through this but me, right? I mean, well, millions of people do, but we don't know that. And of course, I grew up, in the 70s and 80s. We were so disconnected and we didn't have the internet or those things. So now, gosh, we have these beautiful platforms where we can undo all of the harm that was done, and we can talk about healing, and we learn so much from each other. So by people sharing their stories with me. So, for example, the first person who read my book, I won't say who it is just for their own anonymity, but the first person who read my book read it so thoroughly. And then that person and I talked for like 2 years very closely because I'm a very close friend with this person. And as I watched all the things that she was going through, I was just a couple years ahead of her in my healing. So I knew how to tell her what to do. And I just kept growing and growing. The more sometimes she'd ask me for something and I wouldn't even know the answer. And all of a sudden I would just say something. And I understood that my intuition was starting to really speak to me and to trust it.
Yeah.
Because then I would doubt and go, hey, dude, you are not a therapist. Like, this is someone else's healing you're taking into place. Like, who do you think you are? There was that self doubt again, right?
Yeah.
I go, no, no, this is my mission. My mission was to write a book, write a workbook, and to help people. So, I have to just trust that I would never harm someone. And so I have to trust that.
Trust that. Yeah. So, adventure has been part of your story, right? Living in Italy, surviving a hurricane, cruise ship work. How did those experiences help you reclaim your power?
I thrived in those situations. And so, whereas my relationships made me feel weak, loved, lovable, I mean, nobody even asked me on a date till I was 28. Like, what is
Yeah.
that? 28, right? Like, who does that? Who does that? So I can't even tell you how ugly and fat and just everything I felt. And yet I had so many friends who adored me. So there was always this contradiction. But then it was always like, I'm great with friends, but not with boyfriends. They don't want me. So it was always like, nobody wants me when it's commitment, or nobody wants me. Oh, friends are easy, but nobody wants me for the long haul or just anything like that. Traveling, meeting people around the world, it gave me confidence. And I'll even say that when I was when I was 18 and I moved to Italy for the first time, I grew up in North America. I think you did as well. There was always, at least as a woman here, a body image to be skinny, to be, all of these things. When I got to Italy, I very much understood that they were like, we like a little bit of fat on our bums, Tina. And I went, what? Men like that?
Yeah.
Right? And so that helped me to
Yep.
go, "Oh, wait a minute, it's a very narrow-minded North American point of view here." So just things like that. Traveling opened my eyes. I grew up in a very sheltered home. I was worldly, and I am a contradiction. When I was 10, my parents became incredibly fanatical Christians, and then I was incredibly sheltered. We didn't
Yeah.
even have a television. So I wasn't even, people knew about the world and I didn't from 10 onwards until I left
Yeah.
home at 17. So my experience came from actually going to all those countries, and
Yeah.
that just broadened my horizon.
Yeah,
And
seeing
so
the cultures firsthand, seeing how people live firsthand, not through a book or not through a movie, but through firsthand. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
So, what does a life full of joy look like for you now, day to day, and how do you protect it with boundaries?
Once I did a lot of healing, boundaries came quite naturally. And what I love is that our soul will send us triggers to help us with our healing. Like, hey, this triggered you because that's the next thing I want you to work on, right? Like, no, don't run from it. No, 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 no. I did that so you'd learn from it. And it tests our boundaries to make sure they're fortified. So
Yeah,
once I left the COVID world and went back into the real world with my new boundaries, they were tested, and I work with the public. So of course they were really tested. And that taught me where I had to make them stronger, and so I did. And so I worked on them. I'll never be disrespected again. And I was always incredibly strong. Like from the moment I left home at 17, no one's ever struck me ever again.
yeah,
My partners weren't great, but they were never physically violent. That was a strong boundary. So that was a strong boundary at 17. No one will ever hit me again. The other boundaries, I didn't know why I was attracting those kinds of, so I didn't even have the boundaries. Like I won't be disrespected. Okay. We all feel that way, right? And I won't this, won't that. But my idea of what love was so incredibly warped that I didn't realize that even just thinking that they were doing things because they loved me and nobody's perfect. No, that's not what that was at all, right? So once
yeah,
I understood a proper definition of love and self-love, the boundaries came easier. And oh man, rock solid. Like even 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, I went on vacation with a very old friend, one of my oldest friends, and very immediately was disrespected, like on day 3. And I just went, crap, you're a narcissist. What? Because we don't live in the same city. We don't even live in the same province. So it's not like I'm seeing this person every day, but I just went, what? I didn't even hesitate. The minute he called me names and said something really shitty, I just went, I see you.
yeah,
I'm done. I didn't cry about the loss of this friendship like I would have. Oh my God, you're my last one. I didn't even do that. So, what people don't tell you is that often when we heal, we strip away our friendships
yeah.
because we attracted them when we were broken. They are no longer serving me. So, part of my joy and my love is that I live in joy and
I
love. So,
love.
deliver that to me. If you disrespect me, or if every time I talk to you I feel exhausted because all we've done is talk about you,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm out. And it doesn't have to be a big dramatic breakup. I just looked at that person and went, right, I see you.
I see you, and this isn't for me.
I see you. And block and block and block.
Exactly.
While on vacation, it wasn't easy.
So, 2 more questions. So, looking back, what's the biggest gift that came from all the pain? The one thing you wouldn't trade?
Well, it brought me here. I don't think I would have got here without all of that pain. Again, I have to remember my soul chose to go through this because the healers and the teachers of the world, they don't get to be in those positions unless they've walked through the fire.
Yeah.
So did I enjoy it? I did not. But would I trade it? No. No, I
No.
wouldn't.
No.
Maybe at the time I would have, but it's hindsight now.
So, last question. If a listener finishes this episode feeling seen and hopeful for the first time, what message would you want them to carry forward?
If you feel seen and heard, is that what you said for the first
Yeah,
time?
seen and if a listener finishes this episode feeling seen and hopeful for the first time from your messages, what would you want them to carry forward?
Gosh, run with that emotion. I want you to sit with that for a minute and I want you to journal. That's actually what I want you to do. Why do you feel seen?
Yep.
What is giving you hope? And then take those two things and think about what your next step will be. Am I in a situation right now that I need to maybe analyze myself and go, is this bringing me joy? And then ask yourself two questions. Do I want to live a life where I'm reacting to triggers and where other people are in charge of my life because I put them in charge of my life? Or am I taking my life back so that joy does fill my life? Doesn't mean you'll never be in pain again, but it means you are in charge now and you get to choose. Choose you. Choose
Yep.
you. No one else will choose you. So
Exactly.
you.
No one else is going to love you more than you love yourself. Once you find it, once you find that love for yourself, you're going to, and it's not, I'm not saying it to be like, I don't even know the word I'm looking for, but
It's
when you,
beautiful. It's
it is
peace. That's where
beautiful.
peace is.
Yeah.
That's
When
where peace.
and like I said to you, I'm still not perfect. I still struggle with my mental health, and that's an ongoing battle. But I'm learning to love myself fully for who I am, with my flaws and my insecurities, but I'm also learning to live life how I want to live life. Not from what the script says, or not from what Joe down the street says how I should be living my life, or how a book says I should live my life.
Yeah. So be kinder to yourself because
Yeah,
we all struggle and we're all learning, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So, Tina, from the depths of my heart, thank you. Thank you for your raw courage, for turning unimaginable pain into pages of hope, forgiveness, and fierce self love. You've shown us that healing isn't linear or pretty, but it's possible. When we choose it, we don't just survive, we step into sovereignty, joy, and a life we truly deserve. To everyone listening, if Tina's story resonates, if it stirs something deep, go get her books. Start with Finding My Sovereignty, Memoirs of an Empath, for the full, heartfelt journey. Then grab Lost in the Overwhelm to do the work yourself. Head to sovereignsage.com for all the details. Your future self will thank you. Tina, you've given us more than words today. You've given us proof that broken cycles can lead to unbreakable strength. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your honesty, your light, and for reminding us we're never too far gone to come home to ourselves. Until next time, keep healing, keep boundaries strong, and keep choosing joy. Uncle Jimmy out, sending you all love and light. Tina, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.